Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about players that you should probably drop. This is always a tough video to make because I could post this and then the next night a guy in this list has a hat trick and all of you were commenting like, what the hell, why did you tell me to drop this guy? But look, the NHL is unpredictable. I'm just basing it off the trends that we currently have, the information that I currently have, and I genuinely believe that there are better options than these guys on the waiver wire. So let's dive right into it. I quickly want to talk about these three guys that I didn't add onto this list because I do think they are worth mentioning. Number one is Vitek Vanecek of the New Jersey Devils. I added Vanecek to my team when Blackwood went down with an injury, and that was proven to be extremely valuable for my fantasy team as the Devils went on to win 13 games in a row, Vanecek being a big part of that. And I did used to think that Vanecek was going to be a long-term hold. I really did. And now it's looking like that is not the case because the Devils have came back down to earth. I think they've lost 7 games in a row. Blackwood is back from his injury. Before that 13-game winning streak, Vanecek and Blackwood were splitting starts. And Blackwood didn't play that bad. His stats were pretty good. So I expect them to start splitting starts again, especially if Vanecek is playing this bad as he is these past couple of games. Maybe hold off on dropping Vanecek just yet, but I think if you do own Vanecek, you might want to add Blackwood as a handcuff to have that Devils goalie tandem. You know, Vanecek would be much more valuable if the Devils allowed more shots on net, but they just don't. I think Vanecek is going to be dropped in a lot of leagues very soon, and his roster is going to go way down, which is very disappointing for me, but things happen, man. The next player on this list is Anton Forsberg. This one is pretty short, guys. Talbot is playing pretty good as of late, so I think Talbot is going to get the majority of starts, meaning that Forsberg probably has little to no value on your fantasy teams. Number 3 on this honorable mentions list is Jake Sanderson, another Ottawa Senators player. I think a lot of people were high on Sanderson early on in the season because he kind of went on a hot streak. Chabot was out and Sanderson had that first line power play spot. However, Chabot is back and Sanderson doesn't see first line power play time, which is so huge for a defenseman. His peripherals are good, but I just don't expect a lot of points from a rookie defenseman. He's been really cold lately, and I just think there's probably better defensemen out there around that rostered range. On to the official list, number 10 is Gabriel Vilardi of the Los Angeles Kings. My advice, if you watched my hold or sell video a couple of weeks back, was to sell high on Vilardi, and unfortunately he has done exactly what I expected him to do, and that is regress. As you can see here, in his first 15 games he had 10 goals and a total of 15 points, but his shooting percentage was insanely high, which is why I felt this was going to happen. And then if you look, obviously in his last 18 games, 3 goals and only 5 points. He has fallen off a cliff. And when he was streaking at the beginning of the season, he was in the top 6 and on that first line power play. But I just looked on Daily Faceoff and they have him on the 4th line now. So he is still on that first line power play, but his minutes have gone way down. So I'm assuming most of you have dropped him. But if you are still holding on, I would advise you to drop because I'm sure there are way better waiver wire players than Vilardi in most leagues. Number 9 on this list is Seth Jarvis of the Carolina Hurricanes. He had a lot of hype going into the season because last year he had a really good rookie campaign, but unfortunately so far he has been pretty disappointing and I don't expect this to change. He's been in the top 6 for most of the season, which is solid, but he's also on a line with Jesper Kotkaniemi, and you know, not to roast Kotkaniemi, but he is just not an offensively gifted player, and it's not going to help Jarvis playing on a line with him. I just don't think there are a lot of opportunities for Jarvis to put up a lot of points, especially with Patches coming back in the next month or so. He is not going to be on that first line power play, Jarvis that is, and he probably will get bumped out of the top 6. He only has 6 goals and 15 points in 31 games, so I just think with his deployment and the sample size that we have right now at 31 games, I don't expect things to change. I expect him to not be that valuable in fantasy. If you are still holding on to him, expecting him to break out, I probably would drop him. That is my best advice, and I think you could find someone better in that rostered range. Look at someone else and drop Jarvis. Number 8 on this list is John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks, and it feels like around this time of year, every season, Gibson gets dropped in most leagues. Something just happens. Gibson starts falling off a cliff as the season goes on, And this season especially, this has been one of his worst years of his career, with a 3.99 goals against average and a .896 save percentage. Gibson just seems checked out at this point. The Ducks are one of the worst teams in the league. In fact, right now, they are the worst team in the league. So I do not suggest rostering a goalie who is on the worst team in the league. There is a chance he gets traded, but I would not hold on to a guy with a 4 goals against average and on the worst team in the league in hopes that he will get traded. My advice on Gibson is to drop him. It's just not his year this year. It hasn't been his year for a couple of seasons now. Probably can't find a lot of goalies on the waiver wire that are going to start as many games as Gibson, but I think a guy like Jake Allen or Elvis are better options than Gibson at this point, or even a guy that's splitting starts. So let go of Gibson and drop him, and you will probably feel a lot better. The next player on this list is Brock Boeser of the Vancouver Canucks, and Boeser has had a really rough go this year on a struggling Canucks team. He has 16 points in 23 games, but he only has 4 goals. His ice time has plummeted, he's been taken off the first line power play unit, and he might be getting traded after a planned healthy scratch a couple of weeks ago. So overall, I think Boeser is probably a drop. With his sporadic deployment, his low confidence, and the way the Canucks are playing right now, I just think Boeser is not rosterable this year, and there are a lot of better options on the waiver wire. I know right wing is somewhat of a scarce position, but I think a guy like Kuzmenko, Arvidsson, or Eberle are all better options than Boeser at this point. I think 48% rostered is way too high, and this number is only going to continue to plummet. And if you're just looking for a forward to replace Boeser, not even a right wing, there are so many better options on the wire. So drop Boeser and it will help your team, I promise you. Number 6 on this list is Owen Power of the Buffalo Sabres, and I knew going into the season that his roster was going to be way higher than it should have been because he was drafted first overall by the Buffalo Sabres in 2021. People were hyped up about him, but the problem is that rookie defensemen aren't usually that valuable in fantasy, and he has a guy in Rasmus Dahlin ahead of him in the depth chart, so Power was not going to see any first line power play time this season. The fact is, at this rostered range, there are way better options on defense. Guys like Sean Durzi, Adam Boquist, Tony DeAngelo, Torrey Krug, Vince Dunn, Jared Spurgeon. There's tons of different options on defense that are going to give you more fantasy points, so I suggest dropping Owen Power and picking up one of those guys. Number 5 on this list is Jonathan Quick of the Los Angeles Kings. He has been very disappointing this season after a really good campaign last year. He has a goals against average of 3.55 and a save percentage of .882 on a Kings team that isn't horrible, but they let in a lot of goals. To make matters even worse, backup Phoenix Copley, who came out of nowhere, just got his 3rd start last night against Anaheim, and it looks like Copley is going to get more starts as the season goes on if he keeps playing this well. And even if he does kind of struggle a bit, I think they are likely going to split starts between Quick and Copley. If there are no better goalies on the market and you want to keep Quick, I would suggest picking up Copley if he hasn't already been picked up, so you have that handcuff in case Copley is the number 1 guy moving forward. He could very well turn it around, but if you don't have the luxury to hold on to him and lose weeks because of it, then I suggest you drop him. Number 4 on this list is Dominik Kubalik of the Detroit Red Wings. Like Vilardi, in my hold or sell video, I told you guys to sell high on Kubalik because there were just too many red flags going on with his play that I saw, and I just felt that he was going to regress, and it looks like he has. First 18 games, he had 9 goals and 21 points, over a point per game player. And then in his last 12 games, he only has 1 goal and 5 points. Now he's off the first line power play, whereas he was on the first line power play in those first 18 games. And he is off the top 6. I just think that he is likely going to keep continuing this poor play as the season goes on, especially with Jacob Vrana coming back and also Bertuzzi coming back very soon. He just has no chance to be back on that first line power play and in that top 6 with all of those guys healthy. If you're looking for a guy to replace Kubalik with in this rostered range, there are a ton of players that I believe are going to perform better than Kubalik as the season goes on. These include Logan Couture, Anders Lee, Kevin Hayes, David Perron, Carter Verhaeghe, Brandon Hagel, Nicholas Paul, Andrei Kuzmenko. The list goes on. I think if you were holding on to Kubalik, coming back to how he played in the first 18 games, don't. he is likely going to continue playing bad. So drop him and pick up someone better before all of those guys go off the waiver wire. Number 3 on this list is Bryan Rust of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this one might be a little bit controversial because Rust has been picking it up as of late. But there are many reasons why I think Rust is droppable and why there are better players than him on the waiver wire. The first one being that he is off the first line power play, which has been huge for Rust in the past couple of seasons, playing with Crosby, Letang, and Malcolm on that power play. Now, Rickard Rakell has taken that spot from him, and I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. He had 9 goals and 21 points on this power play last year, so if you take away a lot of this production, he is likely not rosterable in any leagues with less than 12 teams. He's also not playing with Crosby anymore on the first line. He is playing with Malkin on that second line. So, I mean, he's still in that top 6, but not playing with Crosby is a huge blow to his fantasy value. And if you look at his stats here, he only has 19 points in 31 games and only 7 goals in these 31 games. This would put him on pace for 18 goals in a full, healthy 82-game season. And this is a far cry with how he played the past couple of years, in which he was on pace for 30 plus goals in those seasons. So really disappointing for Rust. There are way better options on the waiver wire, in my opinion, in this rostered range. We have guys like David Perron, Anders Lee, Logan Couture, Carter Verhaeghe, Brandon Hagel, Andrei Kuzmenko. These guys are better than Rust, in my opinion, because they will actually see first line power play time. I know it's super tough to drop Rust because we know what he can do. We've seen his stats in the last couple of years. But unfortunately, if he is not on this first line power play, he needs to be dropped. Number 2 on this list is Edmonton Oilers blue liner Evan Bouchard. He was expected to be in that top 4 pairing on Edmonton this year and potentially quarterbacking the first line power play, but things have not panned out, and it has been an extremely disappointing year for Bouchard owners. Coming off a career year last year where he put up 12 goals and had 41 points, this year, he has been pretty bad with only 13 points and 3 goals in 32 games and a whopping minus 15, meaning that he has been a defensive liability also. His ice time for a defenseman is not very good. They have him on the 3rd pairing right now, but he is on the second line power play unit. Even if that is the case, the first line power play unit with Tyson Barrie sees way more time. Like, they pretty much are on the power play for like a minute and 40 seconds of the 2-minute power play. So not a lot of value there for Bouchard. He's not going to put up a lot of power play points. Barrie has been on absolute fire as of late, which means I don't think Bouchard has a chance to get back on that first unit. My suggestion is to find a better defenseman on the waiver wire, including guys like Vince Dunn, Bowen Byram, Sean Durzi, Shane Gostisbehere, Jared Spurgeon, Tony DeAngelo. I think these guys are better options than Bouchard at this point. Unless Bouchard can start getting more minutes, I think he is droppable in most leagues with 12 teams or less. Number 1 on this list is Mackenzie Weegar of the Calgary Flames, and I'm so glad that I avoided Calgary players in this draft. I really do feel for a lot of you that drafted Calgary players. They are kind of picking it up lately, guys like Kadri, Toffoli, even Huberdeau, Lindholm too, obviously, but I don't think Weegar is going to pick it up like these other guys for a number of reasons. Weegar has played horrible this year, and that is an understatement. He only has 7 points in 31 games and 0 goals, which would put him on pace for 18 points in a full, healthy 82-game season. Compare this to last year where he had 8 goals and 44 points in 80 games. This is really disappointing for anyone that owns Mackenzie Weegar. Another thing that's hurting Weegar's value this year is that although he still puts up good peripherals, he's shooting less, he's hitting less, and he's blocking less. I don't really know the exact reason. Maybe it's because Calgary allows less shots on goal, which means less blocking and hitting. Maybe they have more possession with the puck compared to the Panthers. I don't really know, but along with no points, like barely any points for Weegar, and then these less peripherals, I think that Weegar is going to be a drop. Another huge reason to drop Weegar is that he gets no power play time anymore. I think he was on the second unit early on in the season because I looked at Hockey Reference and his average total ice time on the power play was 59 seconds, but now he is on neither of the units, which, you know, when I think about defensemen that I want to have on my team, I want them to see some power play time, and I think there are better options on the waiver wire who do see power play time that are going to put up more fantasy points than Weegar. 73% roster for how Weegar is playing is way too high, and in this range you can pick up way better defensemen, so I would suggest dropping Weegar for one of these defensemen in that range that is on the wire before those guys are picked up and you're left sitting with Weegar, who is going to put up barely any fantasy points this season if this is how he continues to play. That is the end of the video, guys. I quickly want to bring up an issue that I've been having with the Yahoo app, and I think this is a universal thing because in both of my leagues there is this issue. All of my friends have this issue. Basically, the season ranks haven't been updating. I let Yahoo know and they said they were aware of the issue, but if you're having this issue too, maybe to speed things up, go on the Yahoo support Reddit or contact Yahoo support through email or whatever they do in their system and let them know that you're having this issue, and hopefully they can fix it, because it's really annoying to try to make trades when a guy is doing great and his season rank is still 100 when it should be at 50. So hopefully they can fix that soon. But overall, guys, thank you for watching again. Have a good rest of your week. Happy holidays, and I will be seeing you soon with a new video. Take care. Bye.